I'll be honest with you, I am not the best Flesh and Blood player in the world. I know. Of course, I am nowhere near as good as
Pro Tour champion Pablo Pintor.
Like, I want to get better at the game. I do want to win. This is a competitive game. I do want to get better and win games, sometimes. The thing is that everybody else has just so much more time. You hear about all the professionals. They practice for hours a day. They practice for weeks on end. And I have a job. I've got a family. I've got other interests, video games, going out, social life, all this other sort of stuff I want to do. How can I make some headway in the local community here for Flesh and Blood while at the same time balancing everything else in life? Fortunately, a framework did appear in order to improve myself. Matt DeMarco wrote a series of guides about becoming a competitive player on the Flesh and Blood website, which worked as a sort of framework on how to do it. So being able to hopefully take down like an armoury, or maybe if I'm lucky, a skirmish. Let's see how I get on. Okay, very quickly into the how, we'll start off with where I was. I pretty much only play like one armoury a week. I played more when the armouries here in Singapore were at home and they were conducted online, but now that they're all in person, it's great to play in the Flesh and Blood. But it does mean that there is some stress on how much I can attend. Fortunately, a lot of the processes and things that are in place from the playing at home still carry over now. When I was playing more frequently, I played a lot of janky linear sort of, combo strategies, like one turn kill Katsu combo, one turn kill Stubby Shiana, which was so powerful that LSS are actually banning Stubby Hammerers. I would like to take full credit for that. Going into skirmish season, I decided to learn a proper deck. And for this, I decided to pick Kasai, and I went to my first armoury and just got absolutely demolished. It was getting absolutely walloped that I realised that I sucked. And then fortunately, that is when Matt DeMarco's articles were published and used this as the framework for improving. As a busy parent, I don't have much time, but after my kid has gone to bed, I do maybe have a couple hours an evening to participate in stuff that I want to get up to. So I could set aside a few evenings a week to practice Flesh and Blood at home. This is after 9 o'clock, so it's after all the armouries are over and done with, which is why the online play was great, because we've already got a community of players in Singapore with webcams or tabletop simulator. It's actually not that hard to get an online game just by messaging like one of the WhatsApp groups and just asking like, hey, who's up for some blitz tonight? The plan for improvement is the rule of 80-20, where I can get 80% of the way but only 20% of the effort, which works out great for me. I'm not looking to participate in the Pro Tour or become Singapore national champion or anything like that, but at least get a bit better and be able to steal a game every now and then. How do we execute it? First of all, well, I took a Kasai list and I honestly net decked it. This is the first point. You need to get over any hang-ups of net decking if you're looking to improve quickly. Net decks are already proven, tried lists by other people, and what we're going to do is we're going to take a list that already exists, then we can adapt it to our own needs. We don't need to be reinventing the wheel. You do not need to slog through a bunch of games yourself to realise that Blue Razor Reflex really sucks in Levia. Somebody else has already done the hard work for us on this, and we can pick up on where we've gone. All of human society is built on the shoulders of giants, and we're basically doing the same thing here, building on pre-existing work. But that being said, here is the crucial mistake that I did make when I was going into armouries and playing decks before. That was, I would net deck, turn up to the armoury with no preparedness. I didn't practice them at all. I just take the list, go like, yeah, that's how it goes. The key thing is that despite the fact that you're net decking, you've got to tune the deck over time. So I'm playing Kasai, and I did change quite a few cards around from the original net deck that I had. So we need to establish, we've got to practice a bit. Another thing as well is that we're looking to play to win here, so we shouldn't make any concessions for budget. If budget is a concern, then you should choose a hero which fits the budget rather than try and take a hero like Old Him and try and make it work without the legendaries you need. So get practice in. Here, I'm already a member of several WhatsApp groups, so it was fairly easy to get a game. When you go to your armoury, introduce yourself and meet other local players where you are, maybe some people further afield, and try and get the odd practice game in now and then. It's a lot easier to try and sneak in one game an evening or something like that when you're busy, rather than trying to commit to a full armoury of 3 or 4 or more games. Despite all this though, sometimes there weren't people available, and then in which case we can go to the fallback plan, which is playing on felt table. The most important thing about practicing with other people is that because it's just a practice and it's not even an armoury, right, there's literally no stakes at the table, you can talk through your turns, make a play, like even if you think something's a bit bad, you can do a rewind, do a redo. You can talk about what's been going on as well. The most important thing is talking about it. I find when you're playing, even at an armoury, a skirmish, ProQuest, whatever, after the game is done, then you'll start talking to your opponent. But sometimes some bits might be a bit fuzzy, you might not entirely remember everything. So at least at the moment when you're practicing, talk over with your opponent and help them out as well. The last thing I want to say as well is that I started off hitting the ground running quite hard actually. I was practicing every night. After a couple of weeks of doing that, I started actually getting distracted. I started playing Tunic, which is quite a cool game. Then I also got into playing Hades as well, just to unwind after work. Having a break can actually help you a little bit, because if you're getting a bit too obsessed, a bit too driven with something, you might not see the bigger picture. And it's when you're having some downtime and you're not focusing exactly on what you're supposed to be focusing on, sometimes that's when you get the neurons connect together, or you get that eureka moment, or you get to improve. And then when you come back, you might find that you've still improved a bit further just because you've taken some rest days from it. So how were the results? I entered 3 skirmishes, and my plan was to very realistically try and see if I could get in the top half of all of the skirmishes. So in other words, I could say I'm just above average. That's it. So the first skirmish I went to was at Gameshaven Pire Labar, and they had a 40-person skirmish, and I ended up going 3-3 and placing in the top half, which I thought was a fantastic result for my first outing with my new and improved practice regimen, so to speak. The second skirmish I entered was at Bricks Play. So round 1 I got a bye because there were a few people who didn't turn up to this 32-person armoury. But again, this time I went 3-2 and also ended up in the top half. I did miss the top 8 because of tiebreakers, but I lost round 2, so obviously that would mean that tiebreakers I was placing quite low on. Overall, Bricks Play was a very positive experience though. I felt more confident with my Kasai deck, and I had made some adjustments to it from playing at Gameshaven into playing at Bricks Play. The final skirmish I entered was at Sanctuary Gaming in Orchard in Singapore, and there I felt a little bit unprepared going into it. But that being said, I had my best result. I went 4-1 and got into the top 8. I did lose in the top 8 to the eventual winner, Abby, but it was extremely valuable being able to play against such a high caliber player like Abby, and also make him sweat and actually earn the victory against me. The game went to fatigue completely. He had literally only 4 or 5 cards left in his deck when I decked out. The day was also especially good because for the door prize they were giving out 1 pack of Monarch First Edition to all participants, and from my pack I managed to pull myself a cold foil Vestige of Soul. Look at that, very nice, tidy. Guess I'm a prison player now. The great thing about this was that I far exceeded my expectations. I had relatively modest expectations of only getting into the top half of each skirmish. Being able to top 8 this final skirmish was just like the cherry on top. Absolutely thrilled and very happy with the result of it. So what's the ultimate end conclusion? Well, you're gonna have to practice a little bit. James White, the creator of Flesh and Blood, has said that he wants the game to be one that rewards people who put in the work. The thing is that you don't have to put in a huge amount of work. You don't have to devote all your free time to playing Flesh and Blood in order to have some good results in a local level. Another thing as well is to take every game as a learning experience, especially when you're practicing outside of an armoury. Being able to talk through your plays, talk through everything, talk about deck choices, talk about individual cards, everything like that, different lines that you might not have seen. This is all extremely valuable stuff. One thing as well that's very important is that you should focus on the parts that you can change. Sometimes the Kano will just pop off and then you've got a handful of reds and you're just dead. Sometimes the Viscera will just do you 30 arcane damage and nothing you can do. The Starvo will fuse 4 turns in a row. What can you do? Sometimes people get a high roll, sometimes you'll also get a high roll. Be thankful that you do it, it's just variance. TCGs, they all have it, at least it's not mana screw in it. Another thing is, don't expect like change to come overnight. You'll have some gradual progression, some ups, some downs, but overall what we're looking for is just an overall trend going upwards that you'll improve and get better as a player. If you do want to see like the janky linear decks that I was talking about earlier, you can go and click here and see a playlist of my previous armories. Or alternatively, if you want to see like the real casual, like pure jank, just have fun, pretzels and beers sort of thing, you can check out our Ultimate Pit Fight series just over here. Otherwise, please, like and subscribe, and it's fantastic. Thank you so much.